few seconds here.
All right. All right, if everybody's ready, I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll get started. All right. Thanks for everyone for being here. And Paula, you read the opening statement and get us started?
I'll read this opening statement to the applicants for today's cases. If you're not satisfied with a decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You're advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied.
All right, thank you, Paula. I guess up on our first order of business is the approval of the May meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
And before you make your motion, I wanted to let you know if you could go to the very last page of the meeting minutes. Should be page 11. There's a correction that needs to be made on page 11 of the meeting minutes. I've left off a portion of the rest of the meeting. Under a fourth section that needs to be titled Items of Business, there are two items that need to be added. At the beginning of the meeting, the secretary stated that the business item, Presentation on the Water City USA Adopt a Storm Drain Program, was moved to the June meeting. And then another item, Mr. Dodd Galbraith stated that his earlier yes vote on the Bellevue site was based upon the evidence that was presented today, despite his feelings and concerns and curiosity. He did not like the way he voted, but he felt that he voted based on the evidence. And then a fifth section for the adjournment, and that would state the meeting was adjourned at 10:40 a.m. So I left that portion off of those meeting minutes. And if with any approval, if you could just also include maybe to amend those on there.
All right, thank you, Paula.
Motion to amend the meeting minutes is requested. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Turn that on.
I have a second on the computer, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Decision letters. We'll move on to decision letters. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
Was there a motion to approve it? I know there's a motion to amend it.
Oh, so Mr. Slade made a motion to approve as amended.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's my understanding.
All right.
That did not include the decision letters.
Did not include the decision letters.
That motion did not include the decision letters.
Okay.
Motion to approve the decision letters.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, we will get started with the first case on the agenda, Mr. Garrigan, if you could.
Yes.
Chairman, I'll recuse myself on this one.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dell stated that he had recused himself from this case. This is case number 2017-00012. This is 903 and 905 Curdwood Boulevard. The APN numbers are 061-100-16400 and 061-100-16300. The inspector is Catherine O'Hara, and this is in Council District Number 8 with Ms. Nancy Van Rees as the council lady. The technical reviewer is Tiffany Ibido. The grading permit number is SWGRT 2016-066-801. The applicant's request is to allow 165 cubic yards of cut below the 2-year elevation of Cooper Creek to count towards balancing cut and fill for this project. The appellant is D223 LLC and being represented by Mr. Justin Hicks. The representative is Mr. Michael Garrigan. Comments, Stormwater staff. There appears to be an alternative to design the wet weather conveyance crossing by using the criteria for a bottomless 3-sided culvert similar to the criteria in Table 6-3 of Volume 1 of the Stormwater Management Manual and eliminate the need for any cut below the 2-year elevation. Codes had no comment provided. Planning, approved. Proposed cut and fill is requested and the variance application is required to achieve the intent of the preliminary SP. And we also had comments from Council Lady Nancy Van Rees in an email submitted May 30th, 2017, stating, quote, I understand that the Baxter Station / Kurtwood SP will be requesting a variance for uncompensated fill only 165 cubic yards in the local floodplain of the ditch that Metro Water regraded last year. I'm writing to give my support to this request. They are creating a uniquely affordable product and providing the road connection, which will be a huge help to emergency vehicles in the future, not only for the new residents, but to the existing ones as well. Let me know if you have a concern that I'm not familiar with, unquote. And at this time, we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Paula. My name's Michael Garrigan. I'm a civil engineer with Dale & Associates, 516 Heather Place. One thing I wanted to add to the staff reports, there's a second email that was sent from staff yesterday after some discussion back and forth, and I have a copy of it if it's not in your packets, but I'll just pick one sentence out of it, but it says the box bridge is an alternative and is not being reflected as an affordable option at this point. That basically was saying that and I'll get into that in a minute, but in order to put a span bridge in and avoid this, it would have to be 3 foot tall by 50, 60, 70 feet long. It just realistically is not possible. But to give you a background on the project, this was something we started working on in 2015. We started out with 10 units. This is a very unique, affordable product. It was something that my client is looking into in a very creative fashion. I don't want to get into all his secrets because he thinks this is something he can do in different areas of town that's going to be very beneficial to firefighters, police officers, teachers, et cetera, that can get a brand new house with all the bells and whistles and yet still be able to afford it, but it has to be efficient. When we started working through this, we ran into hurdle after hurdle. There's a huge railroad easement coming through the side, which eliminated space for several units. Anderson Street / Matthews Avenue, I think. It's called different things on different maps, but the North-South Street, we'll call it. It's constructed to our northern property line, and so Metro Planning required that we connect it through. So at the end of the day, this is a project that my client is very, very, very well aware of that he's not going to make money on. He's going to lose money on this project, but he's doing it as a test. He builds probably 300 homes in Nashville every year, so he has the luxury of trying something unique and new that fits in with the new inclusionary zoning bills and things like that. So we've worked hard on this for probably over 2 years now, working through every hurdle we've hit. The one we're here to discuss today is the floodplain floodway on the new FEMA maps for this wet weather conveyance, and I stress that. If you look at the photographs, you'll see this is a wet weather conveyance. It is not a stream. In fact, when I visited the site, that's my hand on the fence there with BDY, that ditch was recently regraded by Metro. That's new grass that you see in the picture, and I apologize for not having it zoomed up, but you could still see the matting in the ditch and that's probably about 9 months ago. And downstream, there's a head wall with the whitest concrete you'll see because it was brand new. So this is a ditch, this is not a stream, but it does have a floodplain and it does have a floodway. There's a table, hopefully in your packets, that show from the Corps the 2-year to 500-year elevations for the closest 7 stations. And the difference in them in feet is 0.34, 0.39, 0.45, 0.61, 0.63, 0.61, and 0.59. So there's anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of difference between the 2-year and the 500-year. So you can see that you would have to scrape topsoil off of an area that is 10 times what this crossing is in order to balance cut and fill above the 2-year with the cut. So we are balancing cut and fill, but the cut is below the 2-year. The majority of the cut is below the 2-year, and it is 165 cubic yards. And we are offering back mitigation with the planting schedule shown. Would kind of be in that area. We're not doing a lot of planting back there, I would say. It's more kind of undergrowth stuff, because if you go back to that picture where my hand was on the fence, you'll see it's kind of tree line now. So in order to, well, bad picture, but behind me, there are trees on the property there, but on the right-hand side of the upper right picture, that area is going to be filled in with trees and shrubs. That's shown on the plan. And the ditch is actually off our property, but if it had a buffer, if it were a stream, the buffer would be on our property, and that's what we're planning. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garrigan. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak for or against this project? All right, seeing none, we'll move on and to questions. Talk to me about the creek or the ditch, the bottom. Is it rocky? Is it supporting any life?
No, sir. It's completely cleaned. It's basically a brand new trapezoidal channel that was lined with matting and has new grass growing in it. I guess it's probably established grass now, but it's all grassed.
Is it part of Cooper Creek or is it a tributary to?
It's a tributary.
Tributary to.
It comes under the railroad track to the west there, and then continues on up and parallels Virginia Avenue. There's actually 2 tribs that come together right at the intersection of Matthews and Virginia, or close to it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, can anybody from staff explain the improvements and why they were made and how this proposal affects the improvements that Metro has already invested in altering the ditch and revegetating it? Was that a public works project, for example?
I'm not aware specifically it was a maintenance project, it sounds like. I would assume there was some type of drainage issue from a complaint or a concern that was addressed, and I'm assuming it was done at a time before the new flood maps were out. Maybe Roger would be aware of that, but was this a new designation?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir, it was, and it was most likely scheduled / constructed in that interim of the FEMA maps that took 4 or 5 years to adopt. But it does appear clearly that it was a maintenance issue, and it was, I mean, it's almost like it just cleaning out a roadside ditch, so if I had to compare it to something.
And the difficulties in putting a 3-sided bridge or a span bridge is just the distance covered. Is there any possibility of just doing a small 3-sided culvert, just I guess allow any movement of wildlife back and forth or aquatic wildlife back and forth?
Well, the difficulty with the span bridge would be that in order for it to work, you'd have to span the entire floodplain. And since it's such a minute difference, it's a large floodplain over a small area. But so you'd have to span the entire thing, or else you're going to have some fill for tie slopes and things of that nature for the road. As far as a small span bridge for the crossing, I would state that there is likely very little to no aquatic wildlife in this whatsoever, and it is a project that, again, it's not going to be a moneymaker, and we're trying to get it as efficient as we can, and I think that would be a challenge to build a 3-sided box and accept that cost for what is a wet weather conveyance that everyone that's seen it has agreed it is.
And it may be here somewhere. So BDY did the stream determination, and that's been approved and accepted by Metro?
Yes, sir. BDY and Rebecca Doan agreed upon it.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just trying to understand the site. Michael, can you go back to that aerial photograph showing the drainage lines and just kind of back out a bit? I mean, and just see the larger watershed surrounding that site.
Rebecca can because she's.
Or Rebecca, excuse me. Yeah, I forget who the maestro of the visuals are. But, okay. All right. So how far back do those trips go? Or I can't tell if we're on a. It's fairly flat area. Is this like a headwater area?
Yes,
Rebecca, if you could add the hydrologic model in on
Okay.
that.
All right. So it's uniquely flat for a headwater area. All right. Okay. Yeah, that gives me a better. Okay, so potentially there's a lot of water flowing through this site during a storm event. So the question you've got to ask is, are you going to make drainage better or worse for people downstream, particularly people immediately downstream?
I will say one thing to point out about that, Mr. Galbraith, is you can see the jump or the drop, I suppose, across the railroad track about the center of the screen. It drops from a 528-ish to a 521. That's your headwater. It's back, I mean, it's probably an 18-inch pipe coming under the railroad track. It's backing up right there, and that significant drop in the floodplain elevation signifies such. As far as downstream improvements, I would state that this will be an improvement to the downstream. The two culverts that we are proposing, the twin 36s, those are over-designed to avoid velocity and scouring. The pipe that actually this feeds, I think, is a 24-inch pipe in a single. But we're oversized to accommodate that 100-year flow and avoid any backup because, as you said, it's so flat. We really don't have a lot of head at that crossing. And as far as the site design is, we're preserving a lot of trees. We're proposing a lot of trees. We've got a very large bioretention area compared to the 6 homes that we're proposing. I mean, I would almost state that footprint of that bioretention area is probably equivalent to half of the houses. So it is, I do feel like that this will be, it would not only mitigate anything, but I feel like it will improve, especially during your 2- and 5-year events.
So let me make sure I understand this then. So your lots, are they all graded towards the bioretention area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and your cut in the 2-year in the 2-year floodplain or floodway, where specifically is that taking place in this diagram that's in front of us right now?
It is.
Because it's a pretty small cut, 165 cubic
yes.
yards.
It is right on either side of the road where the 2 head walls are.
Okay. So you're basically making room to construct the head wall? That's the.
Well, and we're pulling it. You can see where the contours pull back, make kind of a U shape, both around structures D5 and D6, and then structure D4. We could obtain further cut on the east side of the property, but if you see there's that large tree, the pathway's going to wrap around right there. We didn't want to cut any further back into that to preserve those. Well, there's 2 mature trees and 1 fairly mature tree that we're preserving right there. And I will also point out that one of the things when working through the neighborhood and Council Lady Van Rees that was also important to this is kind of a public park area, and we wanted to introduce the stormwater features and the tree preservation with the walkway trails and things like that.
So I guess what I'm looking for is kind of a summary conclusion in all these questions, and that is you've got a fairly small cut in a non-ideal location but it's a headwater area, so stability of the cut area is not nearly as much as an issue if it were downstream, where a lot more water would be going through there. And it's part of the creating stability for the drainage, and you're compensating for stormwater runoff from the developed lots with the bioretention, and you're not altering the drainway that Metro is already altered any more than you have to, except for these proposed individual features. So I guess, my main question is for staff is, is this good policy? Is this what we want to do? Is this the kind of areas we want to grant? There's lots of trade-offs here. It's not ideal, but did the trade-offs compensate for the improvements?
Well, I can't
residential improvements.
I can speak to the open span. I know where that came up historically were in very low-flow streams where during those conditions it could cause migration issues for aquatic life. So that wouldn't be at play, it sounds like here, if this is not a stream that has ongoing flow.
Sounds ephemeral.
Right. I maybe would defer to Tiffany as far as the storage in this type of headwater situation. Sounds like it's very minimal difference, which to me would seem like the water's moving downstream very quickly, but I would defer to her. She's seen the plans and the calcs.
They designed it, as Michael stated, they basically oversized, so I don't see an issue with it there. So we're good with the design as they presented it.
So would it help at all if they were to improve plantings in the altered drainway? I don't see any tree plantings or native vegetation plantings or along the drainway itself.
Well, the drainway itself meanders on our property, then off our property. But if you look at L 1.0, the areas that we're cutting back will be revegetated with
Just
eight canopy trees and then around 25 shrubs.
okay. So basically, you're just trying to mitigate the cut site.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. So the question is the bioretention enough mitigation? So. Sounds like staff's okay with it. Okay.
What size are the homes?
The homes will be between 1,400 and 1,500 square feet. 2 stories.
And then the road's being put through, it's a public road
Yes, sir.
at the request of Metro, or that's something?
At the
that you-
requirement of Metro. Yeah, Curdwood's a dead end, and Virginia to the north is currently a dead end because of the railroad tracks. And Anderson Street / Matthews, it's shown as Anderson Street on the final plat recorded many, many years ago. Metro GIS calls it Matthews, so the street. It currently extends just shy of our north property line, so we were required to build it to a public standard, 2-lane road, curb gutter, sidewalks on both sides, and then connect it to the existing portion of it so that that permanent dead-end situation right there will be avoided and gone forever.
So Metro's requiring that you do that in order to develop this property this way?
Yes, sir.
And the only reason that you have to have any kind of variance is because Metro's making you do that?
Yes, sir.
And maybe one other additional question, Michael. The culverts you're putting in, they'll pass the 500-year storm?
Yes, sir.
Please, Mr. Slade.
No, if this was that discussion, I was jumping the gun there. Apologize.
I think we're about any further discussion on the board?
I think we've heard. I've heard what I need to hear.
Motion to approve is? I'd like to make a motion to approve as submitted.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? I will say I'm generally a fan of the three-sided culverts. In this scenario, with the condition of the bottom of this ditch and being up in the headwaters, I'm not opposed to it in this scenario. But just for the record, I really like preserving the bottom of the creeks better, and hopefully we'll all try to do that more in the future. All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Reasons for approval. For me personally, I'll just say this will benefit the area. I like the public park concept, and we're providing water quality. And it is just the cut between below that 2-year. And this has been studied and looked at. It's not a, it's not supporting a lot of wildlife in this wet weather conveyance at the moment.
And I would add that the requirement by Metro to put the road in created the hardship.
All right.
Hardship warrants the development.
Any further reasons for approval? No. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much.
All right. I guess we're moving on to the next case.
This next case is number 2017-00013. This is 911 Cahal Avenue. The APN number is 072-090-35000. The inspector is The inspector is Kimberly Hayes. This is single-family residential proposed. And this is in Council District Number 5. The representative is Mr. Scott Davis. No building permit application has been submitted at this time. The applicant's request is to allow the following. 1, disturbance and encroachment of the 50-foot stream buffer, 30-foot Zone 1 and 20-foot Zone 2 of an unnamed tributary to the Cumberland River for the following. A, construction of a residential structure, patio, and HVAC pad. B, construction of 2 swells to create positive drainage away from the structure. C, installation of temporary EPSC measures and tree protection. And D, removal of a portion of old asphalt driveway. 2, waiver of the buffer signage requirement. And 3, continuous mowing and maintenance of the buffer areas. The appellant is Lukens Engineering Consultants, being represented by Mr. Jim Lukens. Comments. Stormwater staff. Number 1, question to the applicant. The plan shows 2 grass swells extending into the Zone 1 buffer. Is it possible to stop the swells at the end of the Zone 2 buffer and eliminate these encroachments into Zone 1? 2, the applicant has requested continuous mowing and maintenance of the buffer. If the variance is approved, staff requests that a condition be added that a 10-foot no-mow/no disturb area from top of bank be provided, delineated and labeled on the grading and mitigation plans, and that standard buffer signage be placed at the edge of the 10-foot strip. Codes had no comment provided. Planning's comment, site is zoned R6, defer to stormwater for review, and greenways will defer to stormwater staff comments. And at this time, we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you. I'm Jim Lukens, Lukens Engineering. Of the property, the buffer is on a stream that kind of cuts through that East Nashville neighborhood. There's a 30-foot Zone 1, 20-foot Zone 2 buffer. The front setback is based on the existing development pattern. It's about 40 feet, so that only leaves a small triangle to build a building. And what we've done is push the structure up at the furthest southeast corner that we could put the structure, and stopped it at the Zone 1 buffer, and minimized the impacts. This was previously developed as a single-family residence. The driveway that we're proposing to remove was the access into the site. The swales that are proposed, it's a flat site, it's a little bit wet, so I just wanted to have some drainage to get the water out so the yard wouldn't be as wet. I'd like to keep that in if possible. If the photos are there, you can see most of the property is just tall grass that was formerly the yard from the home that was there before. So there's nothing really being disturbed in cutting a little swale out to get the water out of there. Staff comments as far as keeping 10 feet off the top of bank undisturbed and pushing the signage there instead of waiving the signage requirement altogether, that's acceptable to the property owner, and we can go along with that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lukens. Anybody in the audience would like to speak for or against this one? All right, seeing none, we'll move into discussion. Anybody, you got anything yet?
I get confused on this thing. Okay. Is there a flood elevation established on the property? Do we know what the 100-year flood elevation is?
I've not seen any.
Uh-huh. You say it was really flat. So what is the depth of the site versus the bottom of the creek? How much elevation do we have?
The bottom of the creek is probably 6 feet below the site.
Do you know what the drainage area is? Have we looked at that?
I did. I don't have it with me. I don't remember what it was. It was.
So there was a house on here before? Do you
Yes.
have any? When was that demolished? Do you know?
I think 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. Do we know the location of that? Is that on a drawing somewhere?
It's shown on the.
I'm sorry.
It's shown on one of the drawings.
Okay. Go ahead. Those are just initial questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dale.
What's the net change in impervious area that you're adding to the buffer versus removing?
To the buffer area itself, it's probably less than 300 square feet, and that's not factoring the prior building.
How do you feel about staff's recommendations that you,
I think it's fine with the signs being 10 feet off the top of bank.
and the 10-foot no mow and the,
Correct.
so all those conditions are acceptable? If
Yeah, except for the drain. We'd like to get the site to drain a little better than it is now.
And that would just be keeping the drainage pipes going through the buffer.
Just cutting a little swale out, not putting any fill in or anything, just cutting a little swale to make sure the water drains through that existing yard area.
I think staff didn't like the swales for some reason. I'm not sure what it was.
that, the first one says, are you willing to stop the swales at the end of the Zone 2 buffer and not encroach on the Zone 1?
I think because we're excavating the swales,
I believe that was our discussion when we put together the staff comments.
You're trying to create an outlet, is what you're saying?
correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
because if you cut a swale and stop it before it gets to the creek, it's going to be like hitting a small dam.
Correct.
Okay.
Staff was primarily looking at the disturbance to the buffer.
Can he mitigate the disturbance?
We were primarily concerned with a cut to the stream bank from the channel being run through there and a potential erosion that could be created from the stream going past it and coming up and down.
That's logical.
Going all the way to the bank. You have to go in daylight.
Yeah, there's no spot elevations out there, but we can probably get it to right up, to maybe to the 10-foot buffer area.
Well, he needs to look at that closely and make sure, I'm not sure in that area if you can or can't, it's pretty flat. My preference would be, yes, to not encroach upon the bank, the existing bank, and his little swell before it gets to the bank, and the swell somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah, and, the potential is to create a head cut if there's much of a drop between the bottom of the design elevation of the swell and the bottom of the creek. So since you don't have any spot elevations, does staff have any idea what the difference in elevation is between the bottom of the creek and the bottom of the swell?
Well, that's again, that's 5 or 6 feet from the creek
So
bottom to
that's-
the top of bank.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not looking at cutting into the bank. We're looking at just kind of starting near the top of the bank and cutting back at about, I think 1.5% or so.
So you're not planning on any kind of stabilized ingress chute into the creek from the top of the bank where your swell ends?
No.
So,
No,
Okay.
we were just really cutting topsoil off and just getting a little bit of positive slope away from the house.
but you're concentrating water in a specific part of the bank. And I think that's the instability that staff is worried about, right?
The little swale that's on the front of the property, that's going to where all the water comes in off the street anyway, so there's a lot of water. The water that we're adding to that is really insignificant, I think, because that's where all the street water comes.
Okay.
Can you walk us through your mitigation real quick? Hit the high points of your mitigation.
The mitigation, basically, there's I think he said there's 11 caliper inches of trees being removed and in the Zone 2 area, and basically replacing those in the same in kind. So there's, I think 11 new trees being placed.
Okay, and that's just the landscape requirement, correct? Or is that above the landscape requirements? Because you're losing those 11 caliper inches, or we're putting them back?
Can you read any of these elevations?
You were asking about the drainage area. It's at least 100 acres because it's a 50-foot buffer, so at least,
But what would the drainage area be for the ephemeral drains that they're going to be improving that will catch runoff and concentrating it in the bank? What would that sort of sub-drainage area be? An acre, 2 acres? I mean, he said it's a small amount of runoff, but acreage usually dictates how much runoff and slope and soil type and land cover.
I think I see where Mr. Galbraith's going with this. Is there any off-site drainage that comes through and will be picked up in those little swells?
No, not really, not that I'm aware of. We're just putting it back right behind the house, so there's no off-site drainage coming to that location.
Okay, so your neighbor's property doesn't drain through your property? Or if you had to put a drainage area to your swells, any idea what that drainage area to those 2 swells would be?
Sorry, I'm blind.
The front swale would be a little bit larger drainage area. The back swale is just kind of what's in that back area. It'd be a couple hundred square feet.
Are these tan lines, contour lines, Michael? I mean, shoot.
It's Rebecca.
Yes.
Rebecca. Yeah. All right, so 2 feet, 476, 474, 478.
So I mean, a little drainage.
So we got another quasi headwater situation.
Yeah.
Can you back off of that a little bit, Rebecca?
Zoom out.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's backing off. Okay, yeah. So the watershed looks like it's splitting above Carolyn Avenue and going north, and the other part's going south. Is that right? Am I looking at that right?
And you mentioned that the drainage ditches were because the lot stays wet sometime. Is it
Correct. I was just trying to get the drainage right there at the patio and in the yard to drain so that the yard's not soggy.
Real close to the high.
I'm not trying to pick up extra area or anything. I'm just trying to get the yard.
Do you think the dampness is due to a seep, or is it just where water collects because of the flatness of the topography there?
I think it's just flat.
It's flat on that lot, yeah.
Do the colors on your maps represent drainage areas? I can't remember.
Yeah, the green represents 100 acres,
Okay.
greater than 100 acres. The orange one you'll see is 10.
So green is just greater than 100 acres?
Yes.
You don't have a color beyond that?
Well, we have 640 acres.
Okay, square mile? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it sounds like we got two main concerns. We've got a concern about the subdrainage that the site collects, that flow will be concentrating and dropping into the creek. And then we've got a larger drainage area above the site that the buffer helps protect, helps to mitigate. So, but the disturbance of the current buffer, the Zone 2, is it all mowed grass now? Is it all?
Yes.
Okay. And the Zone 1 is it mowed under the
It's
trees?
mostly, it's not mowed at the moment, but it was previously mowed. It's all tall grass now.
Okay. And the only part of the Zone 1 that you're going to disturb is the part that you're going to improve for the swale?
For the yes, correct.
Yeah, okay, correct. All right. So the Zone 2 that you're disturbing is mowed and not much of not a habitat right now, other than a buffer, a regulatory buffer.
Correct. And the asphalt drive that's existing is also in the Zone 2.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that helps a lot.
And going back to mitigation,
So it needs a buffer but doesn't have a buffer.
I guess I'm trying to understand mitigation.
Yeah, the landscape architect has a note on there where he mentions this 11 caliper inches is what he designated, and then he's got the looks like 11 new trees. So if they're 2 to 3 inch caliper trees, it'd be almost a double caliper inches being replaced.
Then what's there now? Okay.
Okay, so mitigation is additional tree planting.
Correct.
You know, I personally don't have a problem with the building and the buffer. I think if you looked at the existing, or the building that was removed and the square footage of the asphalt that was removed or will be removed, I think it's very equal, if not less, what you're proposing. So, but I'm focusing on the building itself, maybe. I don't know how staff looks at this. I would assume you would consider this a floodplain, and you would think the building would be elevated 4 feet above the floodplain. So, but it doesn't look like to me it would be at 477. So has staff looked at that? Is that,
There's no, it's not a studied stream, but I know in the past on some of these, you've wanted at least the first floor to be so many feet. You have done that in.
yeah,
I don't think that was in.
yeah, I understand. So it's not a FEMA designated floodplain. It's less than a square mile. So that probably didn't bring that to the level of you looking at the finished floor elevation. But I think that based upon the fact that this lot is very flat, not knowing the exact flood elevation, I would want this applicant, you know, if we recommend approval, which again, I have no objection to what he's requesting, but that the finished floor elevation be looked at and that we assure ourselves that we're setting this at the proper elevation.
Rebecca, can you blow that up? I didn't want to open up the full-size plans that I have. What's the FFE that's set for the house?
477 points.
Okay.
477.6 on here.
Right, and it looks like some of the elevations on the lot itself is 476. So even if you have a foot, you know, I would want to look at that.
So this is a Zone A area, an unstudied stream? FEMA Zone A?
I don't think
believe
it's
it should be.
FEMA zone any of that.
I think it's typically probably a zone X. It's probably, there's the FEMA map in there. Pull the application.
So I'm just saying there's a precedence there. The applicant, or we could put it back on the applicant that he needs to establish a 100-year flood elevation to show that, you know, his finished floor is 4 foot above. And if not, then we'd have to, gotcha.
I mean, I think that's important on this lot.
It's over 100 acres, and so I tend to agree that we probably should require that.
Right. I mean, we don't know. It's less than a square mile, but over 100 acres, so.
Agreed.
No, that's fine. We can do that.
Okay.
Sort of in your, Mr. Dell, in your discussion there, sort of establishing 100-year and 4 feet above that, similar to what?
I think I agree. I think that should be. I think elevating this would be fine. I think it'll look okay. I don't think it'll be out of character. And I think it's what we should do. If that doesn't work, if 4 feet is too much, then I guess they could come back and ask us for a reduction. But I just feel like that if we're going to redevelop this lot, then we need to redevelop it with a house that's well protected above the flood elevation.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I don't often comment on this, but since we got a smaller agenda today, I think it may help to point out the difference in how some of us choose to vote. Redevelopment projects, to me, are a little bit different in terms of these Zone 2 buffer intrusions than a lot that's never been developed. So.
I would tend to agree. I think this will improve the area from what's there now. The existing structure that used to be there that is now demolished, it was much deeper into the Zone 2, into the Zone 1. So getting that out and this new development, I think, will be better overall. And the applicants agreed for the no-mow zone and agreed to the conditions.
Thanks for making the effort to make it better than it was.
So there's so many moving pieces in this. I know that I can make the motion because there are a lot of discussions that I probably got lost on as far as the, cutting out this drainage swell and where to stop it. So if someone else could attempt to do that, I would appreciate it. I mean, I support what he's wanting, but I don't think I can make a proper motion based upon all the discussion. I can try, but I'd fail.
Let me see if I can clarify what I understand, and maybe that'll help you make the motion.
Okay, all right.
or someone else. The applicant would prefer not to address staff's recommendation number 1. And it looks like the sub-drainage is fairly small. We don't have any empirical estimate of that unless staff can provide an empirical reason why they're concerned about the instability situation. It doesn't sound like connecting the swell to the Zone 1 buffer would hurt just to promote positive drainage off the site, just to ensure positive drainage off the site, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, but the applicant is willing to accept staff's number 2 condition.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that leaves the FEMA considerations. So it looks to me like there's an opportunity here for a motion that accepts the proposal as presented with condition number 2 and with the FEMA conditions.
Okay. You want to make that motion?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I'll motion that we approve the plan as submitted with acceptance of, I've lost it, Dot, already, because I'm not looking at the right thing, that any swell that would be created would stop at the Zone 1 buffer, is that correct?
No, they're trying to put the swells through the Zone 1 buffer.
Okay, I thought we had talked about ending it, okay. I'll let somebody else do this. It's just too complicated for me.
All right. We'll make a motion to approve.
Yes.
Yeah, approve as submitted, with the understanding that the client accepts the comments from Stormwater, with the ability for those 2 swells to extend through the Zone 1 buffer, as shown.
And then add that the applicant provide staff with a 100-year flood study, more or less, and that he establish a finished floor elevation on the building 4 feet above said flood study approved by staff and reviewed by staff.
That's accepted in my proposal.
That's the part I didn't feel comfortable articulating, so that sounds reasonable.
All right, thank you. We got a motion to approve on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I call for a vote.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, there are none. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Paula, do we need to be on record as for reasons for approval, or are we done that enough? I'll start. I made the motion. My reasons for approval of that case were that they're improving the condition overall of this site with the removal of the previous structure that was deeper into the Zone 1 buffer. They're preserving more of the Zone 1 buffer. Not a big fan of encroachment into the Zone 2 buffer, but overall the buffer system will be improved by this development. All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to case 3. You guys are ready?
We will move on to the last case on the agenda, which is number 2017-00014. This is HCA Health Park. The address is 2000 Health Park Drive. The APN number is 160-000-21100, and the inspector is Kenneth Tranter, and this is in Council District 4. The representative is Mr. Robert Swope. The technical reviewer is Courtney Larson, and the grading permit number is SWGR T 2017-009993. The applicant's request is to allow disturbance and encroachment of the 50-foot stream buffer, 30-foot Zone 1 and 20-foot Zone 2 of a tributary to 7 Mile Creek to 1. Remove 2,400 square feet of existing parking lot. 2, repave an existing parking lot. 3, install a pervious driveway connection to an existing asphalt drive within the Zone 2 buffer. And 4, construct a portion of a 2-story parking garage. The appellant is Reagan Smith Associates, and I have the representative as Mr. Brad Sladen, but the representative will introduce himself for today. The comments, Stormwater staff. The question to the applicant, is it possible to provide additional treatment in the northeast parking lot area, for example, pervious pavement in existing stalls, bioretention in the islands, grass channels, or proprietary water quality unit? Codes had no comment provided. Planning, conditional approval. Proposed site plan for variance application is consistent with the final site plan. And Greenways will defer to Stormwater staff comments. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
I'm Alan Ramsey with Reagan Smith Associates, not Brad Sladen. But anyway, we're here, just to give you a little bit of background. This is a property kind of formerly known as AIG campus that HCA purchased a couple of years ago. They're in the process of consolidating a lot of their operations in Brentwood into this facility. And so they're going through pretty substantial renovation of the existing buildings and need more parking. So this is a site that has a lot of existing improvements within the buffer, and specifically in kind of the southeast corner of the site that's being pulled up here, that is an area where we're proposing parking garage. And really the net result, there's existing surface parking with about 7,200 square feet within the Zone 1 and Zone 2 buffers. What we're proposing to do is remove approximately 2,500 square feet within that area, and which would improve existing buffer. There is a small corner of the proposed parking garage that would remain impervious within the buffer, but overall feel like it's an improvement and ask for your all's review and approval of that.
All right. right, thank you. I'd like to open the floor up for people from the audience who would like to speak for or against. Please step to the mic and give us your name and your address.
Number one, I can't tell anything what he's put up there. My name is Barbara Kelly, and I live on Kelly Road. And no, I do not understand anything that he has explained
Okay.
based on the map up there. Nothing. So, try again.
Sure.
It says please respond.
Go ahead and do that. Yeah, sure. The existing site, what it is, and I can probably point
I mean,
here.
why weren't we given these maps and things so we could study them? I live right across from the parking lot,
Okay.
and I have to admit, I'm angry, number one, that a building, office building, whatever it is, that height is there in the first place. That is not what the four owners on Kelly Road agreed to back in the late 80s. What we agreed to in the late 80s was two-story office buildings that Brentwood Commons people had, their company, I don't know which one, had built. And somehow, across the street, instead, comes an AIG building with a flat parking lot they were not supposed to have taken out. The only trees they were supposed to have taken out. Now, this goes back a ways, 93.
Yes, it does.
But the only trees they were supposed to have taken out were dead, were trees that were sick or dead. Excuse me. And that, they just came in and flatlined it. Okay? So you have to understand, I'm a tad nervous about what you're talking about. Political things get it.
No, I see. We can understand your feelings behind this, and not knowing the history of what's happened before, it's hard to bring that into our understanding of today.
It's like, where is this two-story parking garage? I mean, I know the water abatement is what the deal is, but where is that supposed to empty out to? That's a rather large concern in the neighborhood.
It is, and I'll address the applicant and say, sure. Is there a way you can describe what's there now, where it drains to now, and when the parking garage goes in, how the parking garage will drain, and where the future parking garage will drain to?
Sure. Basically, all of this site, it has two areas where it can exit from a vehicular standpoint. You've got an area back here to the southwest. However, the primary entrance into this campus comes off of what is now referred to as Health Park Drive right here. So existing surface parking areas, there's a loop drive around the buildings, and the surface parking essentially just goes out to Health Park Drive. Again, there's sort of this back door here that also comes back out to Old Hickory. The parking garages, that will continue. It will continue to enter and exit two locations on the Ring Road as well as off that main drive. So from a vehicular, from an access standpoint, none of that changes or would affect Kelly Drive or have any connection to Kelly Drive.
So what about drainage on the existing parking lot and drainage on the proposed parking garage? Do they differ in where they're draining to?
They do not. No. As far as drainage, from a drainage standpoint, the parking deck here, that will exit the site and tie into the existing drain here that goes to detention pond over here. And same thing, this will tie into underground drainage existing system that ultimately leaves the site. So there's, from that standpoint, there's no change there. Overall, from overall campus standpoint, with these improvements, there's more impervious, or excuse me, there's more pervious area than what exists today. So from overall site drainage standpoint, there will be less water leaving the site, in addition to the fact that we're providing some LID, bioretention, that sort of thing that will further reduce site drainage.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else from the audience like to speak? And please state your name and address at the mic.
Thank you. I'm John Logan. I live in the Hemingwood subdivision adjoining or just behind this development on Ashington Lane. Do you need a street address exactly? 33 Ashington Lane? Good.
That's sufficient, thank you.
Like the last speaker, I'm not sure I completely understand what effect this will have, but my purpose in addressing you is to express our concern, the residents of Hemingwood, as to the increasing pressure on Lake Hemingwood and the weir that dams it up, and the 2 feeder streams, one of which I believe drains this property, the one that comes from the west along Kelly into Lake Hemingwood. I don't know whether you can picture that.
Actually, it comes directly across my property.
Right.
The whole creek.
So the point is that with the Seven Springs development, we've had acres of impervious, I think is the term, surface there, which means much faster drainage. And our concern is that in spite of the improvements we've made to the dam and the good inspections we continue to get from the state, nonetheless, we have not had in the last 7 years a really pressure incident on that lake, on the dam itself. And we don't want another Johnstown flood. But the homeowners of Hemingwood each contributed roughly $1,000 2 years ago to make major improvements in the dam. Gunite was injected throughout. You're familiar with what we did and what the results were.
With the process.
The Seven Springs people and Highwoods Properties made major improvements to the detention pond on their side. There's no detention pond here at all that I know of. Maybe I'm wrong. So that everything that's draining into our lake from what's now the HCA property is free flow, and it ought not be. The creek that runs along Kelly and into Lake Hemingwood has a history of flooding that led to an important court case 20-odd years ago, and the creek has a tendency to silt up, and that increases the flooding there, which endangers the homes on that side of the lake. You don't have a picture of the lake there, but that I can see, but yeah, okay, fine. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm only suggesting that the committee here be sensitive to our problems in Hemingwood, in our subdivision, which seem to be increasing year after year after year as the development all along Old Hickory Boulevard goes on. Any questions?
No, I was going to ask the applicant. He mentioned not seeing any detention ponds or whatnot on your site. How can you walk him through that just briefly to show him what drainage you are proposing and how that will mitigate anything, any increases to that Lake Hemingway?
Sure. Existing on the site, there is an existing detention facility in this northeast corner right here of the property that we're not touching, not disturbing there. With our proposal for the parking garages, we are providing bioretention areas to meet current stormwater requirements here and here that will further sort of mitigate site drainage, infiltrate water into the ground, that sort of thing. So that's in addition to the existing detention that is there. And again, the amount of impervious area on the existing site is being reduced with this proposal, because as opposed to having all surface larger footprints, we are proposing two-story garages, which will condense that footprint, which allows more green area, more landscape area, bioretention area, that sort of thing. And again, kind of to walk through this proposal, the reason we're here today is due to basically this area here, which is the stream, which is located here. It is all encapsulated further to the south. And right at our property, it opens up. And so there's Zone 1 and Zone 2 buffers that typically we're staying out of that. What we're proposing today is, because of existing surface parking that is much further into the buffer, we are proposing to come back, do a little repaving, and also put a little bit of that garage within the buffer. However, there's a net gain of about 30% more green area, landscape area, good buffer that we're providing by doing this.
Excuse me, you can see the retention pond that the Highwoods people, Seven Springs Development, up here in the upper right-hand corner, made major improvements to in the past. Does your property drain into it? I think not.
It does not, no, sir.
Well, then, I would only suggest that it might look with on the HCA, there's a valley in between, but on their side, that whatever retention pond I'm not familiar with, but you might consider the fact that they need to make it at least the equivalent of the improvements that were made on both sides of the Seven Springs development.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we will work with them and look at what they proposed today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I just want to add one more thing.
Excuse me, ma'am. Yes, Michael. Go ahead, Michael. Michael, go ahead.
Oh, I'd just like to ask, maybe for the benefit of the gentleman and the lady, to elaborate on the treatment that they're putting in. What does that actually mean in real terms? Where there's not treatment now, but they're putting in bioretention, the 1 inch. What does that mean, Rebecca?
Oh, you're asking me, Michael. Yeah. I have a feeling you know the answer. So they are actually improving, they're reducing the runoff from their site, and they're cleaning the water more than it is clean now. So it's going to be an improvement both on the water quantity side and water quality side, because they're having to meet our current regulations. And back when this was originally developed, our regulations were not as stringent.
That would be fine, except one comment that I forgot to make earlier is they have proceeded to put up the cheapest looking chain link fence down the property line. And if that cheap bent, already got holes in it, and when it was put up, fence is any sign of what this company is going to do, or what they say they're going to do, I wouldn't believe it.
Thank you. All right, anyone else from the audience wish to address the committee?
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm David Howe. I live on 40 Abingdon Court. I'm Vice President of the Hemingwood Homeowners Association. Yes, I would like to echo that in the creek that feeds directly from your property, there, I believe, are the presence of the Tennessee crawfish. That's one of the issues, that this stream actually runs right beside my house. It's my side yard. And we did have some issues that we had extensive dealings with you guys in Palco, and appreciate your help on that instance. But there is the presence of crawfish, and the other item is that during construction, we've already had issues with trash and workers just dropping bottles and garbage and trash and it blowing into Kelly Road. And someone cleaned out the woods and there were paint cans beside the road, which they just sat beside the road, which I'm sure is many violations of many rules. So if you could please be more attentive to your neighbors. And the fence was installed with holes and tears and it looks like garbage. If there's any way to improve that or address that issue. But, and then in addition, as you start construction with blasting, I'm sure you'll find rock. Our dam has had issues with seismic activity from construction of the Seven Springs project, and in addition to issues with that. Anything else? Right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
My name is Frank Harrell. I live at 10 Abingdon Court, which is on the corner of Abingdon and Kelly Road. I just wanted to echo Mr. Howell's comment about the way the contractors have treated the neighborhood by just tossing trash right over past where they're working, right onto next to Kelly Road, which this temporary bad-looking fence will prevent some of that. But the way that the contractors have disregarded the beauty of the area by just dumping trash and leaving paint cans around is just kind of astounding to me. And it doesn't portend well for how this project's going to end. Just to back up to the big picture, the amazing amount of development in Seven Springs area, all the developers are sort of in this together because they create big water runoff problems that are now handled by the current system fairly well, but during severe rainstorms, the creek that is on our property, which is the creek that's closest to the Seven Springs property and farthest from the HCA proposal, that creek reaches capacity and overflows. And so we just have to preserve what we have now in terms of the way the water runoff system is working. So that particular creek is fed by an underground creek that runs along Kelly Road, and it's also fed by the overflow from the up above the hill at Seven Springs project. And I did want to get a little more information about where this creek is under the ground at Kelly Road is I think under where one of the proposed parking decks is going to be or near it. And I just wanted to get better oriented to exactly what's going on there. So if you could just show that in a little more detail, just for my understanding.
Sure. Now, my understanding of the site, our entire property drains, again, there's the drain stream going through the site here, which ultimately comes under Kelly at this location and then out. So our site is draining ultimately to this northeast corner here. Before then, it leaves our site, does come across the Seven Springs property here, and then comes under Kelly. So where we're proposing parking decks are this location and this location.
Well, we need to keep comments down. We need to move this along.
There is a creek.
There is one, I'm sorry, and there is actually one further to the west, yes, that in this location, yes. I was focusing more on
the one that goes directly across my property.
Gotcha.
So we need to keep on track on what we're focused on today, which is this variance, what's before us now. And I definitely hear the concerns, and I would reach out and say next time prior to this meeting, meeting with the neighborhood groups in the area of a large project is a very good thing to do. So I would encourage you and your client next time to meet with neighborhood groups prior to these meetings. A lot of what I hear sounds like people just don't quite understand the development that's going on. And so, unfortunately here at this meeting, we need to look at the variance issues on it, not so much orientation of what's going on, but more detail about the variance itself. Sir, to address your concern, you're asking about where the drainage comes underneath. I think we see that under Kelly Road. Is there any more specifics we can address about the
Yes,
on the site?
and I think your point about having better communication and meeting with the neighbors, that's all important and would have helped us a great deal. A lot of our reaction to this project is not that we think something's definitely going to make things worse than it is now. I mean, anytime you replace impervious surface with pervious surface, I have nothing against that. But it's understanding the bigger picture. And for example, where that creek is drawn with those green those green triangles coming down, there's actually two water streams that merge at that point. So one of them is still running along Kelly Road underground, and then it surfaces right around the point, right before the point where they merge together from the one coming diagonally from the Old Hickory bottom part of the picture. And so I need to understand better that underground part of the creek that you're not showing very well, and how it relates to the proposed parking decks. Also, I'm not so clear why the parking deck has to be so close to Kelly Road. But from this picture, I've forgotten exactly where it's located again.
All right, so the underground portion of the stream, I'm not sure how to address that because
I just want to make sure nothing's going to disturb that because it's hidden from the contractors, and it needs to be remembered.
Okay. So noted. All right. Let's see. Anybody else want to address the committee? We do appreciate the comments from the community. That does help guide us on what we're thinking and what we're doing. So I do appreciate it. In this meeting, we are focused on the stormwater and the variance before us. So looking at housekeeping and looking at previous issues on heights of buildings is not under our purview today. But it was so noted, and I'm looking at the client, or looking at the applicant, saying, please bring these up to the owner and make sure that go through.
Definitely will.
On the board, any discussion?
Do I
need to get you out of here? Oh, I was
Okay.
looking at how, do I need to get you out of here? You had a meeting? No, I'm fine. You're fine. Okay, thank you, sir. All right.
Does someone from staff need to speak on this?
No, it's
Okay. When I look at the plan, I guess it's sort of obvious to me that this proposed parking garage is so close to the buffer. It's just barely within the Zone 1 buffer. I don't know why this couldn't be redesigned so that it's not encroaching within that buffer.
That's my question. Why are we here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it looks like that, obviously, you're going to have to disturb the Zone 2. I see that, but there seems to be a way that you could redo this so that you don't have to disturb the Zone 1 at all. And that's just my observation. I don't know if anybody else could.
Tilting it?
Just tilting it a little bit, and not grade within that area by some, more creative design. Even the exit from the parking garage is barely in the Zone 1. I mean, it would appear that you could shift it around, reorient it, you could do something to minimize the request. And so it's just an observation for discussion. But I would almost encourage them to maybe look at a slight redesign to minimize this request and make it much easier. There may be something I'm missing, some reason why.
And that's actually, that's something that we acknowledge too. And we talked to staff about that. I think that this is an issue where we had existing improvements when the buffers, and quite frankly, the buffer sort of came a little bit later in the process. But, I mean, that happens. If we do that, I think then we can just leave the existing surface parking. We can get it all out of the buffer and not improve the buffer at all. We wouldn't have to be here, period, but leave the existing improvements as they are in the buffer. So we chose to kind of see this as positive of we're actually improving the buffer and mitigating the buffer.
Yeah, I think that's one way to look at it, but I think, based upon my years on this committee, there's many people, there are a lot of members here that feel like that if property is going to be redeveloped, then there should be a net gain perhaps, and if you can stay out of the buffer or do some kind of creative design, even though you're in the buffer now, I understand that. If you're going to spend this amount of money to redevelop the site, that you go to the extra measure to help recreate a buffer that maybe is not, that has encroachments in it today. So and it appears, just looking at this, a slight shift of the building would help you to accomplish that. So, I mean, I would encourage the applicant to revise his plan and come back and stay out of the Zone 1.
I think the fear, I'll go ahead, Don.
Well, I'm just going to say those are my sentiments as well, and there's lots of ways we can do it. It might be in your interest to tell us how you would achieve that so that we don't tie your hands in a way that would keep you from creatively adjusting this. So.
Yeah, I think it is something, again, that's something that when this issue first came up, that from a redesign standpoint, we looked at it would from a grading or from the elevation standpoint of exit out of the garage to get across the drive to the building, it's going to increase elevations from what currently are about 4.5% up to maybe 7 or 8%. So just from vehicular as well as accessibility from that parking garage to the buildings, that's a negative, but that's something I think that it would it's something that we could probably figure out or just live with, but that's really the negative that I saw when we start rotating from really what is the northwest corner of that garage, kind of pivoting there, moving it closer, is just from an overall grading standpoint, from excavation, that sort of thing, as well as just the grades going in and out of the garage, both pedestrian, vehicular. That was a concern we had. But it is something very much we acknowledge that could be looked at from a redesign standpoint and in trying to get those proposed improvements out of the zone and buffer.
Thank you. Slade, you were speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is that if they rotate that building a little bit, they're not going to be back in front of us.
That's right.
So what's going to happen is that the existing encroachments on the buffer, because there were no buffers when it was really developed, are going to stay there as opposed to come out. Mm-hmm. So the question is, if we don't approve it, then actually what's going to get built is worse than what's going to happen. Now, that all said, I'm still not sure if I was the applicant, I would have come in here in the first place.
Well, through all this, I do recognize the fact that, with the design before us, the net at the end of the project would be better, in my opinion, going to the creeks to the side. The LID implements you're putting in place, I think, would improve water quality and decrease the water going, so it should be a net positive for the community. Mm-hmm. But I do recognize, too, I think you could pull us in and get out of a variance scenario.
Let's go ahead. There's a third way, too. You can move it out of the Zone 1, out of the Zone 2, and add additional improvements on other parts of your property for the benefit of your neighbors, for the benefit of our community, for the benefit of the environment. You're not restricted to even a fallback that is less quality than the current proposal. Sure. So there's a strong sentiment in the community that you all go above and beyond.
Sure.
A technical question, not related necessarily to this property, but on any site in Metro, if a property is being redeveloped, that has a buffer, and there are existing improvements within the buffer, is there at some point in time you're required to remove that or mitigate it if you're spending over a certain amount of money on redeveloping a piece of property? Do we have anything like that in our ordinances? Or?
Like a 50% rule or something?
Yeah,
50%
something
of
like
structural
that.
value,
I mean,
50%.
yeah. No, do we not have anything like that? No?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's an unwritten rule, even with respect to codes violations. It's not really a, I mean, that's a legal issue, but.
I didn't know. I know that it's that way on other things
But
like
it's
building.
it's not like a law. It's kind of an unwritten rule if you go beyond a certain percentage.
Sure.
Or a policy that's made internally.
Okay.
It's not part of, if you look at actual codes, it's not like written that way.
So if I had a vacant parcel that had a building on it, had a basketball court down in the buffers, and I was spending $2 million building a building, it can stay. That's basically what we're saying, right? Okay.
No, the buffers, any need for a grading permit kicks in the need for a buffer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if
And
there,
it's different for the respective projects, but generally speaking, redevelopment that kicks in the grading permit, and even in some odd circumstances where maybe it doesn't require a grading permit, does kick in our buffer criteria.
so if there's an existing improvement within, I know, let's say there wasn't a recognized buffer, but if I'm redeveloping a piece of property and now there's a recognized buffer that has impervious surface in it, is there anything within our rules when you're applying for a grading permit that you can require that person to remove those improvements?
We generally have looked at it like existing elements not part of the grading permit plan can stay, but then those other areas would kick in. So I think in your scenario, what you would see is the paving would stay, but then the areas within that buffer would then be left undisturbed.
Are you guys going to make them come in front of us again if they totally stay out of the buffer?
I think the question I had in looking at this would be whether, given the proximity of the buffer to their structure, if they would need to come back in for a no-mow provision. But that would be the only way it would seem it would come back if it's out of the buffer.
So they're going to let it stay.
I'm sorry. This Barbara Kelly on Kelly Road again.
The public portion of the meeting's closed. We're into discussion on the board.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And so,
We have listed everything you say, and
No, but no, the one thing I didn't say is that the property next to me that is a PUD could not build on a triangular piece of land alongside of the creek that goes through my property because it was listed as a flood zone. So I'm already between two creeks. The creek coming from way back off of Franklin Pike Circle and this creek.
yes, ma'am.
And they both meet together to go down into the pond that, and I'm talking flood area now where people can't build.
Thank you.
So that, I just want that.
I appreciate the comments. Thank you. Yes. We've had time for public comment. We are now into board discussion. So the public comment section is closed at this point. So on board discussion,
I'm sure that they can redesign and they can come back and maybe they don't have to come before the committee, and if that's the case, that's fine. If they don't remove the impervious surfaces from the buffer, that's their choice. But I can't recommend approval of this plan that encroaches in the Zone 1 buffer. I just can't do it. I think that there's ways that they can redesign this and avoid that. And so I'm going to make a motion that we disapprove this application based upon that, just based upon what I said.
Second the motion, because there's no hardship that warrants the development into the buffer.
And I want to encourage the applicant as part of discussion on the motion that to not take this as a repudiation of your effort to go up to do more than you had to do.
Absolutely.
And to address a lot of the concerns of the community and to go beyond that. There are a lot of projects in town that are de-paving parking lots to put more perviousness back into the landscape voluntarily without any compliance oversight, without any compliance requirements. So this is an opportunity to do something really well.
I want to say something too. I mean, maybe that sounded harsh, but I know that as a designer, what I said maybe,
No,
you know,
not at all.
you submit a plan, you get in the process, something else comes up, you didn't see it, you're so invested in the plan, you've spent so much money, you feel like you need to continue forward. I know that's probably what's happened here. And so, but the reality is that these buffers do exist. And we take them, I know probably a lot of people take them more precious than I do, so it's probably unusual for me to make this comment. But I think that a simple redesign eliminates a lot of the discussion, and maybe you come back and redesign, you don't have to come back here at all. And so I think just based upon what we have and what this morphed into, I just can't, I had to recommend disapproval. And I have a second, so there you go.
And I appreciate Mr. Dale's efficient proposal.
Is there any reason to defer it back a month as opposed to its approval?
I don't see one. We've got a motion on the table, Mr.
Motion on the table. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Okay, there are none. That motion carries.
All right, we appreciate your effort on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. I know we have a quick item of business.
I got to be there in 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask Hal to step forward real quick. You can go ahead and listen on the way out.
Roy, I'll catch up with you later. My name is Hal Balthrop. I'm an assistant director at Metro Water, and I'm working with the group at Development Services now. So I did want to take an opportunity to thank Paula. This is her last meeting, and thank and recognize her for all the hard work that she's done helping get this group being as efficient and everything that she does. So Paula, thank you for your work, and good luck on your new role.
I think she deserves a standing ovation, frankly.
Yes, very much so.
And so Can we not vote to deny her ability to leave?
Yes.
I will make that motion.
I will double second that motion.
She's not voted off the island. She'll be around, but Penny Gilbert, as you met last meeting, I think will be assuming that responsibility, and Penny's very competent and capable, and big shoes to fill, but hopefully you won't notice a change or any problems, but certainly Penny and myself and the staff are open to any input that you have and desires that you have relative to the committee, okay? So, and also next month, I understand Mr. Wagner will be rolling off the committee, and we thank him for his service. We'll recognize him at the next meeting, but the board will, or the committee will be selecting a new chair. So be contemplating that and campaigning as you see fit, maybe. And if you need anything from staff, just let us know. So again, thank you for your service, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Echo the kind words. And Paula, this committee would not be the same without you. It's been good times.
Very much true.
The ultimate pro.
Thank you.
Yes. Moving on to items of business, we do have a presentation in front of us. And Paul, is there any other items we need to cover?
No, that's it, unless you
I
want
have a new item.
Oh.
I'd like for us to purchase magnifying glass to see these small little parts. Because I can't see these things. I'm being serious.
Welcome to middle age.
And seriously, if you have a desire to get full size, we will request full size. It's just you have a limited area here, no problem.
I think we'd be saving the applicants money if they literally brought in magnifying glass. Because that would cost $1.50 as opposed to $150 for a fixed set plan.
Okay, we'll see about staff addressing that.
May I ask the question, what technology do you have available to you, or do you bring your own tablets or laptops? If we avail them to you electronically, where you could navigate them on your devices, would that help? Or because your screens there are tied.
Yeah, we can't do that. We can't look at plans the way we used to be able to look. We moved over here.
And they receive them electronically. It's just the idea you have to bring your own.
Would you like for us to consider providing you with a laptop here for use if we can arrange that?
I'm old school. I just like the plans. When I'm in the heat of the meeting, I like the plans in front of me.
So if we have a full set available, a large 24 by 36 set available for the need as it arises, Paula, you may already be doing that.
I think that was the issue. We do have a set, the plan set for the record, but as far as providing large multiple copies to everyone, I think at the time you all want 11 by 17s for each of you.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if we wanted a full set, I think one would be fine.
Right, that's what I'm suggesting, having one set here available in addition to the smaller, if that would help, if you needed to see a greater detail.
And we can also order those magnifying sheets that you can move over. Yeah, that might be helpful.
Expensive. We'll check on that too.
I mean, that's what I use in my office. I mean,
We'll order maybe those sheets, the magnifying sheets. I think that's a good idea.
And it'd probably be easy. It'd probably be easy as well to set up a table maybe over there so that it's always there. So we always have the same place to go. Now, I use my iPad and I can blow up using my iPad, but and I'll keep doing that. But I don't think it hurts to have one set of plans.
Okay, we'll make that arrangement for next week.
Well, let's roll into our last item of business today, and that's a presentation from Mark Thien and Water City USA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Key, thank you for rescheduling us to today. I do have some materials to pass around.
Do you have a presentation you want me to put?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a presentation you want me to put up?
Thanks. Michael's familiar with it.
Okay.
So, my name is Mark Thien. I'm Executive Director of Water City USA, which is a local nonprofit working with watershed issues. And one of the things that we attempted to do 5 years ago was remodel ourselves away from picking up trash that is in streams and lakes and creeks and getting upstream from the problem and addressing it before the trash actually reaches our waterways. This program will be launched on July 27. It's a storm drain adoption program, and it puts Nashville in a leadership position nationally. There are approximately 12 adopted storm drain programs in the country. There are about 6 that are heavily technology-based, as is ours. Ours runs off of GIS with the Esri software. And we've integrated 3 different pieces of technology and have written some specialized code in order to get us where we are today. The idea here is to get people closer to the environmental issues and the stormwater issues than what they are. People pass every day hundreds, if not maybe even 1,000 storm drains and really don't know what their purpose is and how they function. And the majority of Nashvillians don't realize that the storm drains lead directly to our fresh water. So our program empowers the people to solve some of these stormwater issues. And we're asking folks to jump online to our website. There's also a link on the Metro Water website. We've developed this in close cooperation with Metro Water. Mr. Hunt, I appreciate you. Your staff, Joshua Hayes particularly, and his efforts to make this technology system work. So how it works, and I've distributed a few slides there, but if you hit our website, you'll find our storm drain adoption page. The second or third page on your packet there shows what comes up when the link is hit. It's a map. And the map incorporates 44,000 locations of Metro's infrastructure that is adoptable through our system. The program is simple. We're asking folks to just caretake over a storm drain. It's a 3 by 2 foot area at the end of their street or the end of their driveway. And so here we're able to get people that close to the stormwater issue within 25 yards. That's not happening today, and this is a really, really awesome thing to be able to empower that many people. 44,000 storm drains are adoptable with the click of a button. You sign up, put your name on it. You can choose to be anonymous or to have your name appear on that storm drain. On that storm drain icon on our map. And after you adopt it and after you service that drain, cleaning up some debris, spot checking what's around it, we're asking folks to go online again and with very simple clickable boxes, which I've provided some sample of what the survey or the form or the report is so that we can capture data on Nashville storm drains. This way we're able to cluster what the problems are, where the issues are by area. We'll be able to identify what significant issues exist and what's causing them so that we can, again, get further upstream from the issues and not await it, getting into the storm water. So we wanted to give you an update on that. It does launch June 27th. It's a Tuesday. We're launching in cooperation with Metro Water Department, Stormwater Division, as well as Hands on Nashville. And we're appealing to you all to, I'm here to answer any questions and my contact information if you want to follow up with any questions. But we're getting around town as much as possible to folks that understand the functionality, purpose, and unique nature of storm drains so that we can all cooperatively promote the program and do good with us.
Thank you, Mark. I wanted to emphasize and discuss the data that's collected is also shared back with Metro Water, so they can keep an eye on what's going on and aid and help in the cleaning. So we're not asking people to clean out large debris out of their storm drain if they can't do it, but report that back so I can get a Metro's cycle, Metro's maintenance cycles.
Yes, so we have worked successfully on many projects with Metro Water, and what this allows us to do, again, is to get more eyes on the ground, more boots on the ground, more people engaging with storm drains that we can identify what these issues are. There were some photos at the front end of your packet that shows cigarette butts in the gutters. Of course, they're going to roll right into the storm drains. There's erosion control issues going on all over Nashville as we are exploding in development, and that's what you guys hear every day. Our construction sites are just literally falling into our creeks and river due to erosion, poor erosion control. And there are other issues, chemicals, and maybe there's some oil that's being dumped. And this is a really great way to identify what those problems are specifically and then put together a work plan. Maybe we'll dispatch some people out. Maybe we'll get in touch with Metro Water directly. But either way, we've got somebody that's caretaking over the, individual storm drain.
Yes, Don.
You all may not know who's standing in front of us, but Mr. Thien has been involved with the Percy Priest Lake cleanup for 15 years?
10 years ago.
10 years ago with the Lightning 100 Green Team efforts, and he's a national award-winning environmental marketing professional. And now that I've buttered him up properly, I want to encourage you to think about matching this with a spongy landscaping kind of marketing program that will kind of do cradle to outlet. I think you have the skill and the passion and the experience to pull off something like that. This is excellent. This fits this generation's desire to plug in and do it efficiently and with a high quality of technical understanding and accuracy, and the ability in a way to empower them to leverage others with skills, talents, and resources to make it better. So thank you.
I appreciate that comment, Todd. Thank you. I did fail to mention that our system allows you to plug in your address. There's a search function at the top right, which doesn't appear on the slide that I've shared with you, but it is in the functionality of the website of the page. You can type in your physical address, whether it's your home or your workplace, and it'll zoom in right to the storm drains that are nearest you. You can use that map, a toggle just like any other online map, to come down to, street view, neighborhood view. We've got people walking dogs 3 times a day, going around the same route. They're looking at the same things, the same fire hydrants, the same storm drains. And so, this is a way for people to identify where they exist. This is key to us. We are trying to reach people where they are. It's no longer strong enough for us to import people into, a lake scenario. Have them use half of their day, sometimes their entire day, to clean up trash. This is a way that people can make a difference literally in 3 minutes at the end of their street.
I would also like to add, I've had this email from, and this is from Council Lady Berkeley Allen, and this was back in April 21st of 2017 when she thought it was going to be scheduled for the presentation for probably the May meeting. But she actually already had an unofficial list of storm drains already that were going to be, that were adopted in her district that she sent to us.
That's great. Very nice. And this really does echo Water City's mantra of once it's in the stream, once the trash is in the stream, it's too late. This is a way and a means to bring people up, and maybe instead of having a couple thousand people at a large lake cleanup, we have 5,000, 10,000 people doing small things daily. So as we move it up the watershed, and clean it up before it gets to the streams. Smart.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add, we have been working hard with Mark and his folks to try to get this off the ground since he came to us with this proposal. And obviously, Metro Stormwater has a lot of things going on all the time. And one of the challenges that we have is the fact, being a municipality, we have over 500 square miles of area to encompass and to oversee. So when you think about programs like all of our spill response, illicit discharge investigations, we have crews going out and looking at rain routes before big rain events to make sure localized flooding doesn't occur. Even our street sweeping program, where we're going around and sweeping thousands of miles of streets, are all working every day to cut down on the stormwater pollution. I think one of the potential benefits of this program is helping to help us as staff identify more where issues are, and we're thinking that may be a beneficial offshoot of this. Obviously, one of the things we've worked with Mark on is making it paramount about safety. So we've looked at this only being done on certain roadways and emphasizing to everybody involved that it must be done in a safe manner. But we do look forward to seeing how this plays out, and are hopeful that it'll serve to help us do an even better job as stormwater staff keeping our rivers and streams clean.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, one thing, I've been watching Metro Water, for 20, 25 years grow into the organization they are now. They are super good at identifying a resource and partnering with it, not worrying about being the inventor of new things or the manager of all things. They're just the ultimate institutional networker to raise Nashville's overall benefits of water management to its optimal level. So I appreciate what Michael and Rebecca and our new legal counsel and our new board secretary do every day. So thank you.
One final comment, please, and it is in recognition of Metro Water. On the surface, this is a crazy program. It's very ambitious. It's beyond. Like I said, there's only 12 in the country that are doing this. There's only 6 that utilize technology in this way, and all those are on the West Coast. We're typically not that advanced in the South, and there are 0 stormwater adoption programs outside of Memphis. So when we went to Metro Water and proposed this, I got to tell you, I was immediately encouraged and really warmed by just the immediate receptivity to this. They understood it, they got it, they wanted to work at it, and we figured it out together, and I really appreciate that of Metro Water.
Well said. Well said. And I would encourage, as this program develops, if anyone has ideas or whatnot, shoot them straight on to Mark. You have his contact information. And and I guess anyone in the TV world as this gets televised can reach out to Water City USA. Also, comments, ideas, thoughts on this, and thoughts on maybe adopting multiple storm drains, or companies coming in and adopting multiple storm drains is also an option. All right. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your time and your work on this.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other items of business covered today?
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second? Second. Lots of seconds. Yeah, I know. Motion carries, guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've been great.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.